Welcome to week 6 of Math 25. The question is number 10 of the review problems in the health decisions test, which involves shifting between two different units in the SI system, which you might call the metric system. In this case, we want to go from milligrams to plain grams. So I've taken this problem and put it here, but before we solve it, I want to do the Math 20 review. This is something from the shape-shifting section. The topics is named More About SI Prefixes. If you are doing this review at home, I would also read the units and their history. So if you haven't heard of milliliters or liters or things like that, you can get some context. But we can just do this without the context. So there are prefixes. Kilo means 1,000 of something. Milli is 1,000th of something, and centi is 100th of something. And is the font the right size, by the way? Okay. So there's a pattern, and this very colorful picture I made shows that to you, that we start with whatever the plain unit is, a liter, a meter, a gram. It could also be something that Math 20 doesn't care about, like a watt or a joule. They all can have these prefixes. And then if you want to make it bigger, deca means 10 of them, hecto means 100 of them, and kilo means 1,000 of them. And in the US, you will never hear about deca or hecto. No one ever says decameters or hectoliters. All we know is kilometers and kiloliters and kilograms. So we can ignore hecto and deca almost. Kilo is the important one. If we want a small piece of something, deci means a tenth, centi means 100th, and milli means 1,000th. Just like a century is 100 years, a millennium is 1,000 years, a decade is 10 years. There's, strangely enough, no name for the prefix of 10,000 or 100,000, but micro means a millionth of the thing. So if I wanted to do this the long way, I could use a proportion. And I would say that it is always true that 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams. And if you don't mind, instead of writing out the word grams, I will just use G for grams. So that's always true. The other situation will be what's true in this problem. And now I can finish writing my proportion. If I have grams on top, it has to stay that way. If I have milligrams on bottom, it has to stay that way. So we have 45.236 milligrams. How many grams would that be? So I'll do my cross multiplying. Y times 1,000 equals 1 times 45.236. I'm writing more than you would need to if you were actually doing it this way. I have something stuck onto y with times 1,000, so the opposite will be divided by 1,000. And if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. And just like we learned with the riplop or the thousands of dollars of loan in the amortization table, if we're multiplying by 10 or 100 or 1,000, we scoot to the right. If we divide by 10 or 100 or 1,000, we scoot to the left. So we're going to say that in this case, y is 0.045236 grams. We're not done, but is everyone okay with what's on the board so far?
Yeah.
So if you were to do a whole bunch of these, then you would start to very quickly notice that there's a lot of wasted time. It's always going to be true that there's a times one somewhere. And it's always going to be true that we're either multiplying or dividing by some power of 10, some 1,000 or 100 or 10 or something like that. So you will quickly yourself discover a shortcut, but I'm going to just tell you the shortcut to save you that half hour of homework time. So let's re-grab the problem. So we're going to take this list here and see that we have a starting place, milligrams, and an ending place. We want to take it to grams. So we're starting here and we're ending there. Does that make sense how I'm describing starting and ending? So where is it on this list? We're starting in milligrams and we're going to plain grams. Remember that all of these words are prefixes. So if we're using grams, they all have grams after them. If we're using a different measurement, they would all have something else after them, meters or watts or whatever, right? But they all have the same word that they are just stuck before. So we're going from milligrams to plain grams. And we're going to do that 1, 2, 3 scoots to the right. It's the exact same 3 scoots to the right we did the long way, but it saves us all the work. So all we do is we take this number 1, 2, 3 scoots to the right, and we can say, there we go. That's 3 scoots to the right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Let's do another one. You say it makes sense, but I don't trust you. Oh, okay. Is it always grams? There we go. There's centimeters. Okay, so same thinking as before. We're starting with centimeters. We're going to millimeters.
Starting with centimeters and going to millimeters?
Yep.
So wouldn't that be a one placement jump?
We're starting at centa, we're going to milli, so it's 1 scoot. Oops, let me.
Yeah, it's 1 scoot to the left, right?
1 scoot to the right, from centa to milli.
Okay. So that would be 4371.97.
Correct.
Okay.
So the last thing to know, let's get a new one of these just for our is that I was pasting in this nice colorful bit. And we could do that again. I could say, let's take this nice colorful bit and put it here, but that's not what you would actually do on scratch paper. I am cheating with my computer abilities, right?
Yes.
So the first thing we want to do is say, we don't need all of this. We're only looking at how much the scoots happen. And the second thing we're going to say is that we don't really care about hecto or deca or deci. We'll never use them in this country. But we need to keep the place there, because if we're scooting from a plane unit to kilo, we need to go 3 scoots, right? We can't just skip them. So the compromise is that let's, instead of this nice colorful thing that you normally wouldn't have access to with pencil and paper, we're just going to write the initials. So K is for kilo, H is for hecto, D is for deca. Then for the plane unit, my recommendation is to put an underscore. For
Okay.
deca, D, centa, C, milla, M. There's no name, and then micro. And the different
Okay.
students will make up different sentences to help them memorize this. And no one ever actually includes ... micro, because that makes a terrible sentence. But people memorize things like King Henry does, and sometimes people will put a U for unit there. King Henry does usually drink chocolate milk. Killer hobos dance under dazzling crystal mobiles, something like that. So that you could remember a KHD blank DCM in some way. Since all of your tests are open notes, then you don't actually have to make a clever saying if you don't want.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, then this is what you might actually write on your paper. So let's do this one now
Most
that
likely.
written it so that it looks like a student's pencil and paper. So our plane unit in this case is liters.
And we need to go 10 milliliters, which is
Milliliters is here.
3 units over to the right.
Yeah, 1, 2.
So then would so wouldn't it be 56154
Yeah.
milliliters?
Milliliters. Ta-da, we're done.